Hello, I'm Jerry Lintner, and this is State of the Town, a monthly show when we meet with our First Selectman Mary Glassman and get brought up to date on the state of the town. And yes, First Selectman.
Welcome, Jerry. Welcome, SCTV and Althea, down to Town Hall to talk all things happening in 2014.
Well, let's
Happy
start
New
out
Year.
with our frigid weather.
Yes.
And the last snowstorm, they kept saying they weren't hyping it, but it ended up they did hype it. We got about half of what they said. But with that frequency, how do we stand on, what we project for the winter for like snow plowing and all of that? Are we paying more than we would like to? Or?
Well, it's a good place to start. It's a new year, a new budget, a new winter season. The good news is that we have a lot of experience in protecting our residents and keeping our roads clear. And Tom Roy, our Public Works Director, and his staff does a great job in keeping our roads clear. The bad news is that storms that we've had this year, while they haven't been overly burdensome, they've been very tricky. And with the freezing rain and we apply a pre-treatment of salt. It's a chemical now that we use in place of sand and salt, and that chemical works very well as a pre-treatment to keep the ground from freezing. So when the snow and the ice do hit, it makes it easier for the grounds to melt and for our road crews to clear. Problem is when the rain comes. After we've put the application on, it washes away the chemicals, and then it has to be reapplied. So our residents may see some of our crews out more frequently and may wonder why some of our crews are out before the storm hits, and that's why, because they're applying a pre-treatment, which will make it safer for our residents, prevent the ice from forming, and is easier to clear afterward.
Well, now, do we use the same chemical? Because they were talking about the state. And we happened to be going to be driving around during the time they were projecting. But when we got so cold, they were saying, that the chemical that they apply does help things thaw. But then when it gets below a certain temperature, it can't do that anymore. So that thawed surface has the potential of becoming black ice.
It does, and that's the problem. That's the most expensive type of storm for us, unfortunately, because even though we're not clearing a lot of snow, we're applying a lot of treatment. We're reapplying in some cases where we wouldn't have. We would have put it down once, and now with the rain washing it away, our crews are coming out again. So it's too early to tell if we continue along the weather forecasts of this type of storms. It's going to be a very expensive snow season for us. We do budget the last 5-year averages, so we budget very conservatively. So we tend to put enough money in the budget. We have been, except for some of the freak storms that we had, which you can't predict. So I'll be reporting to the taxpayers and to the Board of Selectmen at the end of January when we have a better sense of our 6-month period.
Okay, well, I'd like to address my annual winter, what do I want to say, not enemy, not competitor, challenger. And he is one of our snowplow people. And he's doing his job because we live on a corner.
Yes.
And that corner, it is the only one, it's a T intersection, where you could put excess snow from the intersection. So that 10 feet really belongs to the town. So I have bushes and flowers and this and there. So every winter he prunes for me. He's shrub because they all break off and then I have to go back and trim them back. But I got you because last year in addition to that I put portulaca down, and portulaca continues to reseed itself. So he'll come by next spring and first he'll see I got him again. There's nothing there. And then I'm just going to I'm going to take a picture. I'm going to have it enlarged. And next winter, the first snowfall, I'm going to put a picture of that corner there. I win.
Well, maybe this is a good time to talk about some winter storm tips for our residents.
Okay.
We do have a great crew, and they do a difficult job as best as they can. There is information that you should know if you do have a problem with your plow route. We do have the same plow driver assigned to the same route year after year.
Oh!
And so it is the same
I'm getting your name.
driver, so we know if you are having a problem, please let us know
No,
so
he
we
does
can
a
address
great
it.
job, or she.
We do.
Oh, wait, no, he got the curve.
Well,
last
just so you
year.
know, just for the public's knowledge, we do come across and pre-treat the roads, then we plow the roads, and then we come back and we actually move snow.
Right.
And we do that, the public should know, because we need to make room in the apron for the next snowstorm. So, some folks may wonder why are we coming back after we plow the roads? And that's because it's really important that the roads, that the snow be pushed into the right of way, so that the next snowstorm, there'll be actually a place for the snow to go. And we do occasionally hit mailboxes, and we do try to, if it's our fault, get out there, and there is a reimbursement for a mailbox. So if we do inadvertently do happen to damage one, there you need to call our office and let us know. And finally, we have a ride-along program where you can actually ride along with a plow driver. And
a friend of mine did that.
and I encourage you to do that.
Who
Maybe Jerry
wants
could do,
to do that?
a show
Yeah,
from the
no.
road sometime.
I
but
so
we,
respect what they do, but I don't want to be
I think
sitting in there.
when you ride with the drivers, you realize how difficult
Yeah.
their job really is. The trucks are enormous, if
Right.
you've seen them. They're very warm because you have to keep the inside of the cabs very warm in order for the windshields not to freeze. So the cabs are actually very, very warm, so that's a surprise, because you think of the drivers
Yeah, I
out
would have thought it was
would be
being
cold. And finally, it's very hard to see when there's snow and ice, and our drivers, because they do the same routes year after year, they know to be careful near schools.
Which
they know where the
curbs,
children
plow
live.
up again, the ones you got last year.
So
Been fixed, get back.
so come on out and take a ride and see
I
what we do.
appreciate the invitation. Speaking of taking a ride or getting an insight into what some of our public help does, the police academy, I guess. I don't know if I missed that, if they're signing up. Somehow, every time I put my name on the list, the chief lets me know, oh, you were a little late, it's full.
Oh, well, no, we value our taxpayers knowing what we do, and in addition to riding along in a plow, you can ride along in a police cruiser.
And you learn to shoot.
Learn a lot of things about what our public safety department does to protect our residents. So if you have time and interest, it's a great way to sign up, and we'll find out where you are on that list.
Well, some of my more senior friends who are women took the course. They loved the shooting part. They thought that was really great.
Yeah,
They'd
for
never
some folks
shot a
who have
gun
never shot a
before.
gun, it's an experience. And we do have a new officer, Johanna Camacho, has just joined the ranks of our Simsbury Police Department. Johanna is probably familiar to many of our residents. She has been a dispatcher in town for 5 years.
Oh, my. Okay.
She knows the town, she knows our department, she knows our procedures, she knows our residents, and her dream has always been to be a police officer, and she always dreamed about being a police officer in Simsbury, so we were happy to sway her in last week, and she
That works well.
joins the ranks of our officers.
Well, I have a couple things that I ran across in this last week, and one of them I thought, I think people are generally aware, but then I'm not either in the real specifics. That one's probably going to take us a little time. The other one, I read this article, and I read it again, and So if we have time, we'll hit that too. Maybe you can straighten me out on that. The first one, though, is I understand, and I want to congratulate you again as being reelected as Queen of the Region.
Oh, thank
So
you.
the formal name of that is the Regional,
The Capital Region Council of Governments.
and which towns are in it?
It's a 30-town regional
Wow.
collaboration. It's everything from Hartford to Suffield to Somers to Simsbury to Canton and all the Farmington Valley towns. And it's certainly an honor and a privilege to lead the regional collaborative.
But you've been their leader
effort.
for a while, right?
I have. This is my second term that I've been reelected
And how long
in the
is that
region,
term?
2-year term. So this
Okay.
is my third year.
But you served on it before also.
I did. I've always been active in Simsbury. Simsbury has always been active, and I've always been active in the Council of Governments. I am a firm believer that regional collaboration not only saves towns money, but provides better service, more efficient service. And we've made some really wonderful inroads into transportation, regional transportation.
I was going to say, let's back up and be a little more specific about that, because I do remember over the years, a particular thing or a combination of this service or whatever. But first of all, well, do we know how long it's been in existence? A long time, like forever and ever?
Yeah, the regional councils of governments are both federal and state statutorily enabled. So they are the municipal planning agencies for transportation funding. So any federal transportation dollars flow through the regional capital councils of governments.
Okay, and that's what is coming to my mind, is that in the past, some of the advantages that have come, because I teased you to say, well, you were using your leverage to get us that money.
Well,
and it's beyond that, isn't it? The towns talk about other cooperative things, like which is best for this town or that town.
absolutely. So some of the things that I'm really excited about is, Simsbury was able to take advantage of our participation in the Council of Governments when we did the Route 10 corridor study. And
Okay, that's part of what I'm
folks may
remembering.
say, well, why is Simsbury part of a regional government, and why are we so active? And one of the key things is the decisions that we make that are good for our town are often impacted by what happens at the state or the federal government. So when we looked at Route 10 and whether we were, how much development we were going to allow, well, Route 10 is not controlled by the town of Simsbury. It's not a town road. It's a state road and a federal highway designation, and we needed to have the best plans in place to help develop. So we were actually very fortunate to get priority for the state funds for a traffic study. Now, the traffic study, fortunately, the timing was perfect because the development that has occurred since that traffic study has enabled us to have that blueprint in place.
Right.
So
right.
when Dorset Crossing and the 24-hour urgent care center came in, now with the Big Y application coming in, all of those traffic decisions, we already made those traffic decisions in place, had those in place before the development came in, rather than trying to do it after the development's in or trying to fix some mistakes. You'll see many towns, Avon now is scrambling to have a town center because they allow development development decisions made before they determine their priorities. Well, in Simsbury, we were very fortunate we expedited that study and try to get the good planning in place.
Yeah, I felt like that took a real campaign because at the time that was going on and I was involved in Main Street, I mean, there was real potential at the state level for, in places, making this a pretty wide road coming through town.
Absolutely.
It would have been so destructive.
Absolutely. And one of the things that we learned very quickly when we started the study was that the state had a paving plan for Route 10 in place that was going to occur the following year. And because we were proactive in getting the study, we were able to add the bike lanes, widen some of the bicycle and parking lanes on Route 10. None of that would have happened if we hadn't had the support of the region.
Okay.
The other things that we're really excited about, a couple of quick things, is we're focusing on a regional infrastructure, computer technology infrastructure program, where towns like Simsbury, often we can't afford to rebuild a lot of our fiber and connect to other towns. But we were very fortunate. We were very active in the legislature last session. There's something called the Nutmeg Network program that we were successful in approving through the state. And towns can connect with the other towns, and then the opportunities to share finance software, technology software will grow exponentially.
Oh, that's great. And the more those programs can be standardized, the more it helps in internal efficiency, in terms of being able to communicate and not have to translate it to something else and somebody sit
Exactly. We put one of our most recent successes, Simsbury was able to get our building permit online. And when we looked at doing that in-house ourselves, it was a priority to increase a lot of our efficiencies online. We couldn't afford to do it. But when we worked with the other towns, there are about 17 towns now we combine with, it made it very affordable to be able to
Okay.
do that with other towns.
You
Very
know, that's
exciting.
two things, but the one occurred to me while you were talking, so I'll ask that one first, but then a follow-up. Like in Granby, all of their road repair, and then these big blue tubes lying along the road, it looks like that's for power lines. Is that what they're doing, putting their power underground, or is that water stuff, or do you know?
So one of the things we coordinate with our Public Works Department is there's a lot of stuff happening underground. There's fiber, there's for the internet connections, there's water, there's sewer.
Plus, that's where the goblins live. I
That's right.
remember reading when I was little, The Princess and the Goblins, and you do not want to go in a cave.
do not
'cause
want
that's
to
where
go
they
there.
live. So there is a lot. Always
There's a
has
lot,
been,
and so we
happening.
coordinate that through our Public Works Department, our Town Engineering Department, and we try to make sure that we get all those, we coordinate with all of those utilities, so that work is done before we repave a road, for example. One of the major changes that we talked about was the CLMP new transmission
Yeah.
station in the north end, which has expedited and improved reliability and added about $150,000 in new taxes to our
Good.
to our grand list. So there's a lot of exciting things
So
happening.
is that wire or what that Grammy's doing?
I don't know about Granby. I know in Simsbury, it's a lot of Aquarian water.
Well, that yeah,
infrastructure.
but that seems like a, I don't know, it might be, but there was not in Simsbury piled up these blue tubes that
Yeah,
are
I
maybe
don't know.
12 to 15 feet long and about this. Oh, Althea knows.
Natural gas.
Natural gas.
Oh,
Okay.
natural gas.
And we are
Cool.
working in Simsbury to expand the natural gas hookups, and we're working very closely with their utility companies. There are certain parts of Simsbury that are very easy to connect, and so we're trying to get a rollout with the gas companies
Okay.
to allow some of
Well,
our-
we have natural gas, and it's
Folks to
great.
connect.
I mean, it's the first house we lived in that did, and it's great.
It is great.
Okay, so then the other question was the Simsbury Avon project, which I understood to be water.
Yes.
And I assumed it was cooperative because Avon pays for services from our water treatment plant, right?
Yes, Avon is part of our sewer treatment plant, so
Okay.
yes, we are joint.
So was
regional.
that an aquarium project?
That's an aquarium project, that one.
Okay.
In the south end.
And I still think we missed the opportunity. I understand, and I know with their rate hikes and all of that, they declared all of our piping and everything was in terrible, terrible condition. But otherwise, I wish we'd had the money at the time and there had been a different disposition to buy the water company, because I do think water is the next gasoline.
Well,
so-
it's interesting that you mentioned that. I wasn't in office at the time
No,
that
I know
decision
you
was
weren't.
made, and so I can't speak to the decision of the board at the time. But I was at the Capitol yesterday participating, representing Simsbury, along with Eileen Fielding, who's head of the Farmington River Watershed Association. And we were both named to a panel, a water summit panel that Representative Hampton introduced. And we were sitting in hearings, and we were talking about water planning, and there was clearly consensus that the future commodity, the most precious future commodity, is going to be water.
Yeah.
And the availability of water and the quality of water. We saw that most recently when we fought the Yukon Water Diversion Plan, and that's when our eyes first opened up to the possibility that our water could be diverted
Right.
from our own backyard and used miles and miles away for other development. And so this was a really exciting panel. There will be a lot of hearings talking about water plans for the state and regulations and development, because we want to steer development in places where there is the availability of water and away from places where there isn't.
I just thought of another defensive tactic, and because he is a public figure, I won't mention him by name, but a friend of mine at one point said, "You really don't have a backyard in Simsbury unless you can pee there without being seen." And I kind of thought, that's sort of right. So now what we could do, like if they came after our water, everybody could go out and pee in their backyard, and then the water table underneath would show all this urine in it, and nobody would want it. And then we could stop.
It's a strategy.
We could have urine alerts.
That's a strategy. But
Okay.
I'm really glad Eileen Fielding is at the table. The Farmington River Watershed is there. The DEP is there. The Department of Public Utility Control is at the table. So all of the parties that need to be at the table to make good decisions for the future of our water source and quality. It's very exciting. I'm glad to be part of it.
Okay. Now, the other thing, and I'm not even going to be able to describe it well. It was in one of the local papers, one of the weeklies, I think. But it was describing a recent Board of Selectmen meeting, and it had to do with the Economic Development Committee doing something now, or being involved in something that it sounded like we already had something in place to do that. Does that make any sense? Do you know what I'm talking about?
I do. So just so the public may not know, when Hartford, who's been a very good corporate partner with us, notified us that they had sold off part of their business, we immediately created the Hartford Land Use Study Task Force. And this task force has been meeting
And that's composed
regularly.
of?
It's composed of a member of it's the Board of Selectmen, Board of Finance, which has oversight over the mill rate, and all of the land use boards and commissions, as well as the Economic Development Commission.
Okay.
And we have been working very hard.
A representative from each of those?
Representative from
Okay.
each of them, talking about regulations that we can put in place. We asked the Hartford to fund most of a consultant study to look at the building and the surrounding development. We did that. It was very successful. We are now in the process of looking at a land use regulation that we could put in place proactively before a developer comes to the table to purchase the property. We are looking to become a model for the state of Connecticut to work with the Department of Economic and Community Development to create an expedited regulatory process. Right now in Connecticut, the town doesn't control the state traffic control decisions on Route 10, as we just talked about earlier. So we want to have a good, close relationship with the state economic development department to expedite a lot of those traffic studies and things. So
what's going to be different?
we've been working very hard to look at development. The proposal that the Economic Development Commission is looking at is whether they want to fund another marketing study to look at marketing the town, whether they want to hire an economic development ambassador. We've tried that in the past.
Yeah.
So they're looking at additional things that they can do. I think it's tough right now in this economy to spend more money on studies.
Right.
So I won't be supporting any more of those marketing studies, because I think we really have CB Richard Ellis, which is an international company marketing the Hartford. They have told us that they don't need additional marketing assistance. They know what to do and they know how to do it. So I'd like to focus more on reducing the mill rate, which
Yeah.
I think would be a key economic stimulus, not only for our businesses, but also for our residents, keeping our seniors here, keeping our community diverse. I think we should be focusing on how to reduce that mill rate.
Keeping our community diverse. How about getting our
Well,
community
and keeping,
diverse?
diversity. I think that, I want to compliment our staff. I've worked with our staff for the last 6 years, and we have kept our town budget at zero. But as we've seen, the mill rate has increased, and there are a lot of factors because of that. I think our collection rate is very conservative. We overfund our rainy day fund. Those decisions are made by the Board of Finance. So we need to have a conversation over the next year about how we keep our mill rate lower, and that I think will be a key economic driver.
Speaking of the collection, I haven't seen yet when they're going to pick up Christmas trees. I know that's a pains thing. But
It is, and we haven't gotten the notification. I know
Okay.
they're all out there, but
Okay.
folks should call Payne.
Everything you say keeps reminding me of something else. And I know. I don't know that Althea wants to be identified with this, but prior to it was not her idea. She was not suggesting this. But we were having a discussion because I was not aware. I knew that, medical marijuana is being approved lots of places. I was not aware that Colorado had approved recreational marijuana. I know that's not so in Connecticut,
Right.
but they sold out, immediately. So I'm thinking, in the meantime, all of that open land around the Hartford, you wouldn't, make it legal in Connecticut, but you could grow lots
Well,
of
now
that
before you
stuff.
worry, I think we're going to have a mass confusion out there. But in order to just clarify, the state does allow, or will be allowing, medical marijuana not dispensaries.
I understand that. I'm not talking
and,
about that. I'm talking
growers.
about just growing it there on all
But
that
it has to
open
be
land.
indoors.
Oh.
So just so you know.
But if you sold
And,
it to Colorado, and they could send guards
not
or
allowed,
something.
not legal.
Not going to work?
But Simsbury, the land use commissions did
The price has
approve
doubled, I understand.
an indoor facility, a growing facility, and the Board of Selectmen did not have purview over that. But the public, there were a number of public hearings, and it was approved. And whether the state will select Simsbury as a site remains to be seen.
Okay.
But just January is a busy month. Before we run out of time, I
Yep.
just wanted to invite all of our residents to be careful and watch dates for budget hearings. We'll be presenting, staff is working very hard to put a budget together for me to review. I will present the budgets to the Board of Selectmen by March 1st. We'll have public hearings, we'll have staff meetings. My goal, as I said earlier, is to reduce the mill rate and work with the other boards and commissions to do that, and encourage everybody to participate.
Okay, well, that sounds good. As always, I kind of think what we're going to talk about, and then we run out of time, and there are a whole bunch of things that didn't get covered. So, Mary, I appreciate it very much. Darn, that marijuana thing's not going to work?
Not gonna work.
No, oh.
No.
Double check it.
I will.
Mary,
Thank
thank
you.
you. Thank you very
Good to
much.
see you.
And thank all of you, and we'll see you again next month on State of the Town.
Funding for Simsbury Community Television is provided in part by contributions from viewers like you. Thank you.